So good evening. My name is Ezel Sanford. This is Andreas Mitchell, and this is Betiel Izaz. And we are undergraduates. We've been working on the Diversity Affairs Council since last semester, towards the end. And basically what we wanted to start off with was the purpose of the DAC. So there are several purposes to the Diversity Affairs Council. And a lot of people have been confused about this, so we're going to just elucidate that again. But one, we wanted to provide a reactionary group. So a group of students who would react to certain events like the Mother's Bar incident, which happened in Chicago with students, senior students. Also to react to things like the WPD racial profiling incidences, and to house certain entities that would react to certain events like that. Also, one of our purposes is to provide policy recommendations to student union. That's one reason why we are proposing to become a part of the executive or legislative branch of student unions, because we would like to make policy recommendations, make sure that SU is concerned with diversity in line with what the chancellor and provost have stated in their mission statements about being concerned with diversity on campus. And also, one of our main goals of the DAC is to foster connections and relationships between different student groups. So we want students to become more aware of each other, to co-program with each other. And we think that if student leaders can come together and really start to work together and sort of cross those barriers that have been said to exist on campus, we think that the student body will follow suit. And so those are just three of our main points to the DAC and sort of our main goals that we're striving for.
How many people do you see to be on this?
The main structure of kind of like what the DAC would be is that it's the reason we want to be part of SU. SU doesn't always get a good rep. I'm a senator, so I totally understand what the good and the bad that students see. So the reason we be part of SU is because SU, it kind of needs to be opened up more, and we feel like an entity like the DAC, that's something that the whole point is to foster relationships among different students and student groups, administrators in the Barrio St. Louis community, that it would be better for that. So in a way it works like a class council would, in that they're all part of the SU executive, but they're autonomous. So what the DAC would be is that you have a chairperson who's appointed by the president, and it's not just someone who they can choose willy-nilly. It's someone that has expressed passion and has experience in this, and it's kind of a job that they would apply for. And that has to go through Treasury and Senate. And then surrounding the chair is a core of cabinet members. I think we agreed to 6 members, and again, that's an appointed process that the chair would have the ability to appoint, and that's also, but with input from the executives, president, VP programming, and the others. And then kind of like the members that would want to help out, and we've had a good amount of students, at least 20, who have not been part of SU or who were mildly involved in other groups who have expressed interest in having something that would allow people who aren't just cabinet or chairperson to be involved. So kind of like a committee that would deal with things like training, diversity training, or dealing with projects or work in the rapid action plans that we've had.
Are you vying for any sort of like specific power or autonomy in your decisions, or are you simply trying to create like some sort of a group to provide like recommendations but not necessarily enforceable ones?
A lot of the purpose of the DAC is just to foster connections. We don't want to force people to feel like they need to do things to promote diversity. We just want to give people somewhere to go if they need a resource to co-program or to get engaged with diversity or to build diversity within their group for the sake of the student body. We don't want it to be a programming group. We don't want it to force diversity upon people, but we feel we really need an entity that has strong connections within the administration, within student union, within the student body, and other groups, that can really just tell people if they want to do something diversity related or in terms of connecting with other groups, the DAC will be able to provide a resource for them somewhere either high up in the administration or high up within the student body that they might not otherwise have access to.
I know, at least sort of from the untutored perspective, there are arguments, or at least perception of arguments within the WashU community that this is something that might actually not, while it's certainly a venerable endeavor, might not best be done via a group at all. That efforts to cultivate diversity don't succeed or fail by the ability to foster connections or to have reactionary groups. What do you say to that kind of complaint? Or
Yeah, I would take this.
I'm sure you got it.
No, it's cool. I've been thinking a lot about this. Well, there have been a lot of arguments about this. Why do you need to have a group for this? Why does it need to be a part of SU? Why can't this be a student group? And my thing is this. There have been several student groups that have been formed to focus on specific aspects of diversity. Also in the administration, you have the Coordinating Committee for Diversity Initiatives, which focuses on, getting a diverse faculty. You have the Campus Diversity Collaborative, which is headed by Naomi Dardar, who's also focused on, fostering diversity within the administration. So you have these different, aspects and these different groups that are working independently, but when you speak to students, like when we did our campaign for the roundtable earlier, talking about the Diversity Affairs Council, and speaking to different students, a lot of students were complaining still that they didn't feel that maybe WashU wasn't an inclusive place, that WashU could be more diverse. The students sort of self-segregate each other, and there's no sort of fostering of breaking down those barriers. And so obviously there's some kind of disconnect between these different groups that are focused on diversity, and things aren't really happening to really reach the student body. And we think that having a Diversity Affairs Council, an entity which, has several, analogous entities in, all of our, peer institutions, we think that would be something that would really sort of reflect well on Washington University in terms of, being focused on diversity as a main issue, on campus and fostering that, but also just having an entity that's, that's for all these different groups to come together and really work together to have a greater impact on the student body, and not only undergraduates, but graduate students as well as the faculty and administration.
How do you see this as a long-term goal? I see all these, we live in a very pretend world here, and I guess when I want to see diversity, I'm not really concerned how we act within this campus, but how we're able to act in a real world where there's a lot of things. Do you guys have is there a long,
Yeah, well, we have talked a lot about long-term goals. Specifically, it's going to take a while to build the connections that we're talking about, getting in touch with campus leaders and top administrators, and once we build those connections and get a strong movement on campus, we'd like to reach out to nearby other institutions and colleges and also to the community. So we've had a member of Focus St. Louis, it's a St. Louis diversity-based organization, came to a meeting and discussed his goals and what he's working on, and discussed an interest in collaborating with us once we got on our feet. SLU has a committee very similar to the DAC that we could work with to work on St. Louis project-based initiatives or collaborating with existing St. Louis initiatives. So there's really a whole network of other diversity-based projects going on in real St. Louis that we're not even aware of here on campus a lot of the time. And the DAC, once it's on its feet and has the right connections, will be able to reach out to these groups and actually make a difference in the community.